This is a heist for the Los Angeles Lakers as an NBA insider has just dropped a bombshell Lakers trade report. And following what has been an electric start to the regular season, a huge new trade report has dropped that has fans fired up. I'll break that down as well as a ton of other updates ahead of their next game. But before we get into it all, ladies and gentlemen, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support's been absolutely unbelievable, and we're continuing to make daily content over here. So thank you guys for that, folks. Ton to go over today, and obviously Luka Doncic making history. He's had an insane start to the year. All these different things that are happening. The Lakers being fantastic this year. A trade report has emerged kind of out of nowhere here. And you can see here from Brett Siegel, very reputable insider, about an hour ago, saying that, talking about some of the turmoil between John Morant and the Grizzlies. And this video isn't about John Morant, but within that article, he spoke about Dallas Mavericks center/power forward, big man, really, Daniel Gafford. One quick small bit of intel revolves around the Dallas Mavericks' slow start, leading the teams wondering if they can make roster changes before the trade deadline. Several teams continue to monitor Daniel Gafford, including the Los Angeles Lakers, sources tell Clutch Sports. So, folks, this is pretty interesting because if you've been following the channel for a while, Daniel Gafford has been a guy that, we've covered on the channel a bunch. Obviously, used to play with Luka Doncic for a little bit there and had a has had a very good, career in general. And for the Lakers, who are off to such an incredible start here, for the Mavericks to be exploring potential trade, and it started with Klay Thompson, but also you could see here Dallas Mavericks big man Daniel Gafford is also being up for at least a situation of monitor. And obviously, he signed a 3-year, $60 million deal. He's only 27 years old, but he is trade eligible this season, which is what makes things even more interesting because A, he's a player under control, but B, this would be perfect for the Los Angeles Lakers, at least in my mind. And this has sparked a ton of conversation from fans, insiders, writers, all these different things about, hey, Daniel Gafford would be fire for the Lakers. It would be a perfect fit. We've had this conversation before. And of course, they have a pretty good center right now in DeAndre Ayton. But DeAndre Ayton, we don't know exactly, how he's going to be through the rest of the year. Now, he's been starting caliber, at least up to this point. Jackson Hayes has been, he's been, iffy. But if you can get a backup like Daniel Gafford, that would take this team over the top. And a new article has dropped revealing quite the interesting trade. Now, keep in mind, I think this exact trade was from a little bit ago. This isn't like a brand new proposal, but I wanted to bring this up because there's a few different things to kind of keep in mind here. And the most important framework here is Daniel Gafford for Dalton, Knecht, and a first-round pick swap, or a first-round pick in this case, which is 2031. It doesn't have to be a 3-team deal. You can look through the other, avenues of this deal as much as you want. Of course, salaries have to match all these different things, but this one is a 3-team deal. Gafford and Highsmith for Vincent, a first and a swap, and then Hayes and Knecht and a second-round pick. Now, I don't think they're going to necessarily get rid of Jackson Hayes, but for the sake of argument, we will talk about this. Lining Gafford would allow him and Ayton to play shorter bursts. Keeping the big men fresh when carrying a significant defensive load would help significantly. The Lakers get a long-term solution at the position and wouldn't be sweating Ayton's future. And that's another piece of information to keep in mind here. Daniel Gafford is not, going to be a rental. He's going to be on a contract for a couple more years. DeAndre Ayton is a potential, rental. We don't know how he's going to be after this year. And Gafford, of course, been dealing with a little bit of, injury troubles. But this year, he's played 3 games, averaging 12 points. But let's look at his past. Now, of course, we know in 2023, they played together. In the first half of last year, they played together as well. Doncic and Gafford, that is. And Gafford was one of their big pieces that they got at the deadline a couple of years ago in 2023, 2024, the Mavericks from the Wizards. Now, he's on his career averaging almost 10 points a game. Really, for the past handful of years, he's a great, bench big man, a very solid rebounder, falling off a little bit. But he's also a pretty darn good defender. This year averaging, basically 2 blocks a game. For the past few years, averaging basically 2 blocks a game. He would be an unequivocal upgrade over Jackson Hayes. There's no doubt about it. He's not quite as big as Hayes, but Hayes doesn't really use his body anyway that much. And obviously, I might not be a huge Jackson Hayes advocate. I'm not a huge fan of him. And I like the way Ayton has played recently, especially even in that game against the Spurs where he had a great game. You're going up against, Victor Wembanyama, all these different things. I like what Ayton's doing, especially in the defensive end. You pair Ayton with a perfect fit in Daniel Gafford, who has familiarity with Luka Doncic, who is an absolute grinder. Yes, he doesn't stretch the floor, but neither does Jackson Hayes, right? To me, it's a seamless upgrade. And you can see this year, Doncic being 26, give the Lakers a further timeline than other stars, perhaps, to build a championship contending team. Proposed trade could very well unite Doncic and former lob threat Daniel Gafford. That's another thing. It's a lob threat he has familiarity with. Now, again, I'm not going to dive too much into what the actual package would be. This one, it's pretty, steep, right? You're giving up a first and a swap. I don't know if they necessarily want to do that, but at the same time, like a framework of Knecht and a first, I think would be pretty reasonable, even though he's under a pretty respectable contract here. But I mean, for the Mavericks, they're struggling immensely. And if they're a team that is willing to give up some of their assets, I mean, people might be talking about bringing Clay Thompson to LA, which I'm sure I'll have a video on at some point. I like the Daniel Gafford idea. And keep in mind, the Lakers were heavily, heavily interested in Daniel Gafford before he signed that 3-year, $60 million deal. They're going to be heavily interested now. Those things don't change, and there's a reason they've held on to their 2031 pick, their first round pick, that is, their swaps, all these different things. They've held on to them so that they can go ahead and make the move that will put them over the top. And this team is doing impressive things without LeBron James. You add one more piece of that, and again, I don't think trading for Daniel Gafford would necessarily cost the firm to where you can't make another deal at the deadline, but the Mavericks might be sellers sooner than later here. And obviously, there is the tidbit of, does Nico Harrison want to trade with LA again? Maybe that's a factor in this, but at the end of the day, I love it. I love it for the Lakers, and it is a huge report. Now, a couple other things I love here. Let's talk about how legendary Luka Doncic, his company, is in some of his accolades this year, but also what this means heading into the the rest of this season. So you can see here, most points to the first 5 games of the season. He's with Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan. Those are the 2 guys that he is with. He has had 200 points through 5 games. And of course, they haven't had LeBron, which you could argue has given him more shot opportunities, all these different things. That's a positive that Luka has been able to do this without LeBron, because the defense has been able to collapse on Luka more. Of course, Austin Reaves being elite this year, elite, electric, and taking that extra step has helped them a bunch, of course, as well, to not necessarily put all the defense on Luka. But you can see here from Lakers Guru, I don't think we're grasping what we're witnessing. I don't think a lot of people are understanding necessarily, especially those outside of Lakers Nation and Lakers fandom, I guess, understand how good Luka has been. Like, he has been the best player in the NBA, at least in my mind. And Reaves is up there as well. And all of that to be said, it's been without LeBron James. And you can see here, Luka has officially taken the torch from Bron as a leader of the Lakers. Who's your favorite player that's putting up MVP numbers right now? And Trevor Lane makes an interesting and good point. LeBron obviously won't win MVP, but the Lakers absolutely need him if Luka is going to. A 7-2 start without LeBron is great, but with him, the ceiling and floor is so much higher, despite what some might tell you. And I want you guys to let me know down below in the comments. There's been some talks about trading LeBron while he has value, trying to get a 3-and-D wing, and then taking, Luka as the, you don't need LeBron, all these different things. I think that the fact they're 7-2 without LeBron means when LeBron gets back, they're going to be even better. Yes, it might be a decreased role a little bit for Austin Reaves and some of the other guys, but LeBron is an elite basketball player. Who cares about his age? He's the best of all time. Him being in the lineup is critical. It's needed. And yes, they're running a very good starting lineup. Smarts look pretty good. Hachimura, DeAndre Ayton. It's interesting because all of this to say that LeBron is obviously going to help this team. And I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. And JJ Redick has been at the focal point of how good this team has been and the reason, the nucleus behind it. But one of the other things to keep in mind, go make upgrades. Like, this team is special. Yes, it's early. They're 7-2. Let's see what they continue to do. But the team is special, and trades are going to have to be made in order to make this team even better. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are beasts. See you later.